Hello guys, welcome to Bike Matters. This is the Honda CB750 Hornet. We've had it in for a couple of weeks, stretching on to 3 weeks. And myself and Felix have been riding this around, having an absolutely wonderful time. As you can see, we've done quite a few miles on it. I think we've racked up nearly 800 miles in the 2 to 3 weeks we've had it, which I think is pretty good going. You can tell it's very dirty, so apologies Honda. You might have to give it a quick clean if we don't get a chance to. But I'm going to try my best to clean it, you know. Standard. Now what I've got to say about this bike is this is going to be a quick final thoughts video. I'm not going to be covering too much spec in this video. This is going to be more of a just recap of what I think about the Hornet after having it and doing basically some general use of it. So I've been commuting to and from the office, going to and from the shop, seeing some buds and pals, doing some touring on it. The ABR Festival is going to see a nice little duffel bag on the back there with all the camping goods, see if it can do a bit of touring miles, and I think it will be able to do that. Of course, it's a brand new bike for 2023, and the Hornet and Transalp are basically competitively priced monsters, and that new engine unit, superb. But let's give her a little fire up. It's in neutral. It sounds very dulled from a quick turn on when it's been warm, but I think it sounds lovely. Anyway, let's get on the road, talk about the CB750 Hornet, what I think about it, and if I haven't said it already, welcome to Bike Matters. Right then, let's go. Naturally, I've been riding this in sport mode for practically the entire time I've had the Hornet here. I'm going to do my final thoughts, then I'm going to cover a few thoughts with Felix at the ABR Festival, where I've toured into the festival there, so just talk about it there. Naturally, as soon as I come out on the road, I'm met with loads of traffic, so let's just clip forward to when I'm on the road and it's a bit more fun to enjoy, yeah? I'll leave everything running though, don't worry. So yeah, I've been leaving this in sport mode for the most part. There's one of 4 modes, so sport, standard, rain, and a user mode that you can configure yourself. Sport mode is basically just full throttle access. It's got the full power, engine braking is set to sort of low, and the selectable torque control is at a nice simple 1. Standard is a sort of step between that. This thing hustles. This thing hustles. Quick shifter on this as well, so it really does love to get on the gas, and the brakes are superb as well. So you're flicking up and down the gears and it just sounds brilliant. Honestly, I love the sound of it. You can configure the user modes to be a bit of a between of whatever you want really. You can have it really low power with max engine braking, for whatever reason you might do that. Set the traction control. We're taking the first left here, and it's going to be one of my favourite routes locally. So if you do know these areas, this is quite a lovely route up towards Harleston. And if you know the channel from back in the day, did this when I was on the Mod 1 and Mod 2. Probably took the corner a lot more trepidatiously than I do now. But yeah, let's go. I see a lorry in the distance, which doesn't bode well. But this thing handles super well. It just wants to be chucked into corners. And as I met with the lorry, I'll talk about the power real quick. I mean, it gets put down so nicely. The torque is just unbelievable. And if you really push on, the front wheel does want to lift up a bit. Of course, you've got to be careful with that because the police don't like front wheels coming up on bikes, and that's another story for another day. What else do I love about this bike? I mean, maybe I'll talk about the things that aren't so love worthy, the little niggles that I have with this bike. And I'll be fair, there isn't too many at all. Now the first one is the clutch lever. I've found that for me it's perfectly sized, but I wear a size large glove, so if you wear a size small glove I mean, the clutch itself, if you can see, it's right on my fingertips. If you've got a small glove, you might have to reach your hand really forward to get a hold of that clutch. When you do pull it in, it's quite light, depending on the engine braking as well. It doesn't really hamper your progress when the clutch does engage. But for the most part, the clutch is really nice. You've got span adjustable levers on the brakes, or the brake lever up here, and that's really nice as well. Elsewhere, suspension is firm, but it's not too bad at all really. I've ridden bikes with far worse suspension than the Hornet. It's nice and comfortable to ride. You are forced into a bit of a particular riding position. I mean, the seat isn't huge. You know, I found that sitting here on the seat, sometimes I'm met with the back of the pillions, or the front of the pillion seat a little bit, and that does get in the way a touch sometimes, but it's not too bad. It's really not too bad at all. I mean, I'm 6'3" and I can fit on this comfortably. The weight of the bike is 190-ish kilograms, and on the road it's just super flickable. It's got a really short wheelbase and it's nice and compact, so when you're chucking it into corners, whilst it does feel stable when you're riding along, cornering just feels so light, and low speed work and town work, filtering, just bits in town, really easy. It makes it so easy. Get a good lean on here as well. I'd love to take one of these around track in a sort of Honda Hornet battle off sort of thing, and that would be lovely. I was going to overtake there, but there's a lorry coming the other way. The fuel tank itself, we've averaged around about 50-ish miles per gallon. It does get quite thirsty if you're really pushing on. So I've done a recent trip of around about 100-ish miles. It was fine, it did it all in one go, but then I was met with a low fuel indicator soon after riding that 100 miles. And yeah, I was pushing on for quite a lot of it. So it's just one to be aware of. The next one is a bit of a niggle, is the twitchy throttle in sport mode and to an extent standard mode. When you're at low speed and you engage the throttle, if you're coming around a corner, if you're in a roundabout, if you've let out the clutch and then you put it back out there, if you're a bit too sudden with it, the throttle is really jerky. Especially if I was to like lean off now, go into second gear and then put on very gentle power, absolutely fine. But if you're quite aggressive with it, it really reacts. And whilst that's good, that's exactly what you want in sports mode, it can catch you unaware sometimes. Now this does accelerate extremely quickly. So I've ridden the GSX-8S elsewhere. I've ridden the MT-07 for Bike Matters, so check out that review. And I've ridden a number of other of the naked bike world, especially this sort of A2 segment. And Felix has got some good opinions on that, so stick around to the end to hear what he thinks about the Honda Hornet. But I genuinely think that this, for the price, which is £7,000 or £6,999, this is one of the best. I genuinely believe that Honda has smashed this when it comes to the price and what you get for the money. It handles super well. The engine is a real treat, and it would be lovely to see what this engine's like in the Trans Alp that's been resurrected. But yeah, I genuinely think that this is one of the best A2 compliant motorcycles. It's of course 91 brake horsepower, so it can be restricted down to your A2 friendly 47 brake horsepower. Elsewhere, the tyres, super sticky. It's the Dunlop Road Sport 2s, and they're really nice, really nice. But yeah, the tyres on this, super grippy, really comfortable, really nice to use. And they're 17-inch front and rear, so they spin up nice and well. And it feels like they have just enough just enough character in them to allow you to get on and ride as you need to. So they're definitely there for you. Just seen two cars going this way. Boo-hoo. I mean, that's a good chance to tell you about the braking power. The braking is superb on this bike. You've got a twin disc up front, rear disc, and ABS, dual channel of course. And if you're accelerating and braking really heavily, the ABS doesn't seem to kick in until you're really asking the questions. And you can really comfortably ride around and just put the brakes on if you need to. But that's another really characterful thing of this bike. You can leave it in a higher gear, twist on the power, and the throttle just gives you that torque instantly. It's really responsive to the throttle. It gives you the power anytime you want it. So you've got the TFT dash there. It's really frustrating that it can tell you your consumption, but it doesn't tell you the range remaining. Now I don't know whether that's because they don't have the accurate fuel level in there. It gives you a fuel gauge, of course, and you've got your gear indicators and all that fun stuff, but maybe it doesn't measure the exact level of fuel, so it can't predict how much range you have in the tank. That's another thing. U-turns really easy on this, really easy. Steering lock is brilliant. Yes. The road looks so different when you're hooning along it, doesn't it? Fantastic, love it. And the thing is, knowing that this bike is a 750, 90-ish brake horsepower, or like 91 brake horsepower, whatever it is, it just handles so well, and it's so surprising what this motor can do. I know a lot of people say that the parallel twins of the world are a boring option for manufacturers to go for. You know, you've seen countless times people saying, oh, not another parallel twin. But it makes sense when you can consider the fact that it's cheap to run, relatively. It's compact, easy to get along with, and easy to work on for your garages. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, this has got an uneven firing order, 270-degree cam, and it sounds beautiful, it rides beautiful, it reacts so just spot on. I mean, it's a compact bike, and I'd love it to be a little bit bigger. You know, if they released an inline 4 Hornet with that CB750R motor in, that was a little bit scaled up, I genuinely would be paying that £89 a month or whatever they price it up as, just to get a taste of this and have it every single day as a little commuting tool. Because that's the thing, I've looked on social media, and I don't know whether Honda have just targeted ads at me, but it's £89 a month with a certain amount of deposit and mileage and all that stuff. Colour options, yellow's really nice. I love the yellow. I just go for the yellow, to be honest. Grey's second best. The white and red's not very nice. And then you've got black and red. I just think the red is, I see what they're doing, but it just looks like such a toy colour. It just doesn't really sing to me. But every choice is, you know, subjective. If you want to go for the white and red one, then you do that. You do that. So the TFT display is nice. It does dim when you ride through really dark areas, and the lights, you've got your indicators is always on, you've got your DRLs, and that Honda Hornet faceplate is pretty typical. It looks kind of like a CB500F, but it does kind of look like a Wasp headlight, so fair play. See what they've done there. Also then just consider the fact that your smartphone can be paired to it. You've got a USB-C under the rear seat, so under the pillion seat you've got a little hidden away charger point in there. It really is hidden away. It's in like a little weatherproof cap, and you just think it's not even related to a USB charger, but it is. Switchgear itself, nicely made. You know, the indicator switch works nicely. You've got up, down, left, right arrows that don't really do anything at all. You can look through a few of the bottom menus where it says, like, you know, voltage and trip A, trip B, odometer, time, which amusingly is incorrect on this loan bike we've got, so it thinks it's 2020. I think I said that in my specs video as well. Quite funny that the bike wasn't even born in 2020. That's kind of weird. And you can reset the trip A and trip B with a separate function FN button, but outside of that you can't really do anything at all. That was a little green lane there. Maybe that would have been for a trans out. And I think that really rounds it up. I mean, I'll do some closing thoughts here. For £7,000 or £6,999, this bike just feels like an absolute steal. You know, you can chuck in your accessories to get some soft shell panniers, you can get a screen, which this might benefit from, to be fair. You know, your quick shifter pack, and just all of the little bits you can add to this bike in the accessory catalogue, of course add to the price, but as a base bike, this thing is pretty wonderful. I've really enjoyed having it in, and it's going to be a shame to see it go. I'll leave you with a question. what do you think is the best A2 motorcycle on the market today? As a brand new one, not as an old generation one, but as one that's like a 2023 model. What is your favourite A2 motorcycle? And depending on the comments that come through, we might factor that in for a future video. Where am I going? This way. But yeah, I've rabbited on enough. We're going to cut now to the ABR Festival and we can have a little chat about the Honda Hornet CB750. So hello, welcome to ABR Festival. As you can see, Hornet's behind me. It's covered in mud because we've been commuting about on it. But a few bits I've got to say about it, and then we can jump into Felix's first thoughts because of course he's been riding the bike as well. So this bike has been a great, incredible fun machine to ride. Of course, it's a little bit compact, it's a little bit smaller. I really want to try out the Trans Alp for that reason because it's the same motor in a bit of a bigger frame and just a bigger sort of bike in general, and that's going to fit me nicer. But I have no complaints about this bike whatsoever, really. There's a few niggles that I'll go into now, but overall, this has been incredible fun, I've got to say. So the first real niggle, it's a ride-by-wire bike, but there's no cruise control. And when we were commuting over from South Norfolk all the way over here to sort of Warwickshire area, Ragley Hall, it was fine. And you know, you can ride a bike with no cruise control. It's not a be-all and end-all, but it would have been nice to just be able to flick on a cruise button and just be away. On that same merit, you know, you've got no range remaining on the fuel tank. No. So you've got a fuel gauge, so you're not going to just be suddenly on empty. But it doesn't tell you, oh, it estimates there's going to be about 50 miles left until you want to fill up. Like, that would be quite nice.
With the TFT dash, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's got a TFT dash, and that's great. It's really visible. And it does actually have a dim function because we went through like a tunnel or like a bridge that was quite long. And then the dash went into a dim mode, and I was like, "What? Where is this been?"
It wasn't a high and low contrast; it was just dimmed, wasn't it?
So it was, yeah, like a as it went into dim mode, I was out. So I don't know. It was like it did something, and I was like, "What was that? Where did this come from?" I've ridden it in a sort of dark enough condition that I'd assume it would automatically switch, but it didn't. Then there's also no charge point up front, so if you've got a gadget that you want to mount up, you can't do that. Of course, I've already mentioned the twitchy throttle, but that's nothing really. You just flick it into like a sort of standard or rain mode and it's fine. So no dramas there at all. And ultimately, the bike itself is just bang on. I mean, even commuting on it as a daily runner into work, it's just been bang on. Like, you fire it up, just start riding and you're away. Like, I will admit I've been riding it in sports mode and I've been a bit silly sometimes, just chucking it on the long way around and just having a great time. But that's what this bike has always been about. The Hornet has always been about that. And for me, for the price as well, what, £7,000, £89 a month.
It is mental how much bike you get for your money.
Outrageous. And again, I've ridden like the MT-07, the GSX-8S. I've ridden basically a lot of bikes that fit into this segment of bike. And I would comfortably say that the Hornet is right up there as one of the best. Not just because of the price, but just how it rides and how fun it is. And yeah, that's what I have to say about it. But what you might want to know about is Felix's first impressions, having ridden it as well, just as much as I have.
Yeah, so this was definitely my first sort of midweight naked bike experience. Like, been on bikes of a similar power, but not in this format. And so to get on a bike like this, I think has been a massive experience for me. My initial thoughts were that it's quite compact, but Alex, you're 6'3", I'm 6 foot. But again, it's just because of that first impression. I haven't ridden any of the other bikes, but it wasn't uncomfortable. That's kind of what is a big point for me. It was, you can, to a degree, do many miles on this bike, and you're not thinking, oh, I'm really starting to go now, it's small, it's like my knees are up here and whatever. But the small, I actually found the small nature of it almost a positive, because it's just this little weapon between your legs.
It really is a little weapon.
It's always got the torque there. Just talking about the engine, for example, it's a fantastic motor. Super accessible in many ways. Like, the twitchy throttle in sports mode is very present. Like, it is a thing, but if you're in sport mode, that's kind of what you expect. I think if you're coming into this either from like my point of view, where it's sort of like this is your first big bike, I think you'd have a wonderful time with it. I think it is incredibly accessible. Ultimately, with any motorcycle, it's how you ride it. It's not how extreme it is, it's what you have control of it ultimately.
Yeah, like what you want to get out.
But also, I think having ridden other bikes of a similar sort of power range, I think any rider, an experienced rider on you, they would love this bike. Like, I think it really captures, because I'm a massive fan the CB600F Hornet and the 900F Hornet, they've always been iconic bikes in my eyes, and I do think this lives up to that name.
Yeah,
in many ways.
You know, we even spoke to someone when we were commuting about on this.
Yeah.
Well, commuting, like coming over here.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fella said, "Oh, I used to have a Hornet, and it's always been about having fun." And
Yeah, totally.
And he was like, "This looks really nice. Like the colour's really nice." And he was like, "This is really interesting." And
Yeah.
we had a little chat about it, didn't we? And he was just like, "It's good to hear that they've continued on, even as a parallel twin. It's still incredible."
And take away the sort of hooliganism of it, it's such a solid bike. The quality of it, it feels so refined. The brakes were fantastic. I had a couple moments where I actually really needed to hammer on, and it was ridiculous how quickly it stopped you in a safe way. And you know, the ABS there, it's not too intrusive. It's not too intrusive at all. It just is there when you need it, so you can really hammer on, and
honestly,
you're still not reaching that point of the ABS. It's just the brakes bringing you to that natural slow stop. But if you need it and crunch it, it's there.
Yeah,
it's that safety net. And I think the suspension as well, it's pretty stiff, but preload adjustable on the rear.
Yeah, on the rear.
So you can sort of...
Not on the fly though. You have to like actually sit there and...
You have to crank it. But that does mean, obviously, if you wanted it to be a little bit more wallowy, it can be. But it's stiff, and it's ultimately a very road-focused machine.
Oh, absolutely.
And so throwing it around the bends, you don't lose the stability there.
Not at all.
I think if you are pushing it, that's when you start to think, the front end's getting a bit light.
I mean, sort of certain speeds, you start feeling a bit like, oh wow, this is actually getting a bit hairy.
But ultimately, we're all on the UK road, so we're all being nice and sensible, and we're not seeing any unstable speeds. But I've really enjoyed my time with the Hornet, and I think it's going to put a lot of dilemmas in people's heads. I think.
Yeah, I think if people start riding this, you know, one of the things that I see it a lot nowadays as well. Like a bike comes out and it's a parallel twin, and someone says, "Not another parallel twin." And it's like, this one actually has the character.
I said that. I was like, just another parallel twin.
And I won't lie, I've said it in the past as well, but now having ridden a lot of the new, like 270-degree crank parallel twins that have, you know, that uneven firing order, and they have that character to them, this one even sounds wild as well.
Oh, it sounds fantastic.
So yeah, they're trying to appease the Euro 5 gods, and they're trying to make sure that the bike is, you know, doing the right things for emissions, and trying to just make it like not too loud, but it still somehow skirts under all of those rules and has a wild time.
It sounds fantastic.
Certainly a bike that I'd recommend anyone jump on, even just to have a little hoon about. If you go to your local Honda dealer, I'm sure they've got loads of these just sat there waiting for a little test ride.
And ultimately, if you're in this corner of the market, you're going to be jumping on them all.
Yeah.
And you'll make your own decision. But
and on that as well, if you're looking at this corner of the market, if you're looking at the sort of A2-ish market.
I mean, would this be eligible for A2?
It is. Yeah. So in terms of like, it's 91 brake horsepower, so it can just be restricted down with the restrictor kit. So you're still getting the same bike. It's not like a different mechanical composition to make it A2. But then you're still getting that ridiculous power for A2 that you can then unlock in sports mode.
And with the price, I think it's going to, for the A2 rider,
everyone will look at this.
You know, it's a £7,000 bike. You can pay that much for sort of 500s or 300s or 400s. If you're looking at A2 bikes, you could quite easily spend the same amount of money as you would on this, and get essentially a hell of a lot less.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because, you know, just to add on to it as well, Honda for me recently have been quite sensible. A lot of their bikes have been quite like, it will do it, like, you know, the CL500, basically the 500 range that they've been pushing a bit.
Which is a fantastic range.
They're great, honestly, don't get me wrong, they're great bikes. The CB500X is a fantastic machine, you know, but that engine itself, brilliant. Then you start looking at this 750 and it's actually a bit wild. Like riding this in sports mode, it's like, oh, there is a little bit of flair in Honda still. They're still trying to do a little bit different.
I think some people historically may have looked at it as a potentially boring option. But this is not boring. This is far, far, far from it.
I think, just to think back to when we first both rode it, and you know, it got dropped off, and I had a little spin on it, you had a little spin on it. I think we both were sat there like, oh, this is actually quite special. And I was like, yeah, this is actually really, really intriguing, because not that I jumped on it thinking it would be a bad bike, but I just didn't really have any expectations at all. I just thought it would just be like another bike.
And especially, you know, like just even in the styling sense, right? Because I think that's the first thing a lot of people look at when these concepts are released. They're like, oh, the styling this, the styling that. We were a bit, unsure when we're sort of looking at the concept images that had dropped and sort of like the pre-release stuff, but as soon as it was in front of us, I think we both kind of fell in love with it, didn't we?
Yeah, the more you see it as well. Like, I wasn't sure about the sort of front light.
Yeah.
I saw it and I thought, it's okay, but it just looks a little bit too, I don't know. But the more you see it, the more you're just like, yeah, that's actually quite nice. And one thing I did point out to you today at the festival, when you see the white and red one with the red frame with the red forks, like the colours are a slight bit off.
It's a little bit of a mismatch.
It's a bit like, they're not quite the same. So when you see it, you're like, oh, that's, yeah. So, I mean, realistically, I don't like that colour anyway. White and red to me just isn't the one.
The yellow though.
Yellow, the grey's nice.
The grey's
I've not
also
seen it
very
in
nice,
person, but in photos the grey's nice.
Yeah.
But the yellow is like Hornet.
It is the nature and the character of the bike is to be in this yellow coat, and
For
it just
sure.
looks brilliant.
It's
and
just
the
bang
finish
on.
on the paint
Yeah, honestly,
is just outstanding.
It is a bug magnet.
Oh yeah.
You park it up, and then there's like 10 bugs inspecting the paint close work. And you're like, okay. I think I just thought of one thing as well. The clutch is quite far out there. I've got like a normal size hands, and it's fine. But I think someone with a shorter sort of reach in their hand might struggle a bit. They might have to.
It's non-adjustable, isn't it?
Because it's non-adjustable. Yeah, the brake lever is adjustable, but the clutch is not span adjustable. So, you might have to just think,
you might have to even think aftermarket potentially.
Yeah, and like adjust the clutch actually yourself. But yeah, that's just one random thing that I just thought of when I was
on the whole,
bike. Overall,
fantastic bike,
wicked bike.
It's gotten us here.
Yeah,
gotten you here.
Gotten me here, and I was fine. I mean, towards the end, my legs were getting a little bit cramped, and my bum was getting a little bit sore.
3 hours on any bike.
3 hours on any bike, you'll feel that. And we got here, and I set up a tent fine, and I say fine, that was a bit of a chore.
The tent was probably the hardest part of the journey.
Yeah, quite literally. And also, I put loads of luggage on this Hornet. Like, I had a little bag on there, and it
We'll
was
stick
great.
a picture up now because it was
Quite fun,
just
actually.
hilarious. So I got a picture from Alex in the morning, and it was brilliant.
It's like, we'd be warned. I'm packed up to the nines.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we saw loads of people packed up more than that.
Yeah.
But of course, I guess that's a natural way to say that there is accessory packs. There's panniers and stuff like that.
But you can do it yourself.
But you can just do it yourself and just sort of rig something together with some bungee cords and a bag. Like, yeah, great fun. But no, love this bike.
Yeah,
I
think that rounds it up. It just was, I think, for me, a bit of a game changer.
Yeah.
Opening up the door to this whole naked world, and hopefully more to come.
Love opening doors to naked world. But yeah, no, I think we'll leave it there. Leave a comment down below about what you think the best naked bike is in this segment, the A2-ish world. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a like and comment down below about something naked in the world that you love to see. Don't do that. Subscribe if you haven't already for more Bike Matters antics. And we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.
Cheers, guys.